Hello and welcome to the very first edition of Rocket Launch Sports Picks. My name is Jonathan, and it is such a pleasure to come to you live today with the very first ever edition of the Sports Picks. It's the Tuesday load. We got some big NBA playoff matchups after a thrilling game in San Antonio yesterday, after what was quite the win for the New York Knicks. Two very exciting matchups in this playoffs, Cleveland and Detroit. Both two teams that had absolutely nail-biting series coming off big wins. And then we got the Thunder and the Lakers, two teams that cruised through their first round series. Now, grew up a Phoenix Suns fan, so the Thunder really mowed right by them, but as expected. That being said, we also got UEFA Champions League, the Arsenal versus Atletico Madrid. Huge matchup. Tied 1-1 in the first leg. This is going to be a big one. I will give my take on that matchup. But we are going to start off with our basketball picks here today. And we got 4 picks from all 4 teams that are playing. Let's start off with the Cleveland-Detroit matchup. We got Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris was a key player for Detroit in their first round series, and we're picking that he will go over 14.5 field goals. You can see that in every single game of that Magic series, he was able to get it done. You can see that in the 3 regular season games before it, or if you go to the last 20 here, you can see in much of the regular season, he wasn't attempting 15 or more shots. However, once the playoff series came around, yes, he was. And what does that show? That shows that when the stakes got highest and it mattered the most, the Detroit Pistons really trusted Tobias Harris. They really put him in the best spots, and he was a key factor in their series against Orlando. Now, one thing I will say is that playoffs are about matchups. And I think because we got 4 to 7 games against one team back to back to back, it is important to look at the head-to-head. And I know that the head-to-head doesn't necessarily support that Tobias Harris is going to necessarily get over 15.5 field goals. But, again, we do have to think about the nature of the playoffs here. Cleveland does allow a lot of three-point attempts compared to other teams. You can see that right here on the right. If you look at the three-point attempts, he does take a significant amount of three-pointers. Again, I want to look at our last 10 games. A significant portion of those shots were three-pointers. And we understand the kind of player that Tobias Harris is. He can do it at the mid-range. He can do it inside. He's really that kind of guy that you can put in all spots of the floor and he can take quality shots. That's what he's always been. And here against Cleveland, with the kind of matchups they have, there's no doubt that Bickerstaff and that Detroit staff is going to look to put Tobias Harris in some of the best spots and have him take some real quality shots. So Tobias Harris over 14.5 field goals. That is our pick for our first pick for this upcoming game. Let's go to the next one. James Harden is going to be a key player for Cleveland. He's a key player on just about every team he plays for. And Cleveland is really going to need him, especially on the road with his experience, to get out of the gate strong. So we're picking that he will go over 4.5 points in the first quarter. And this is something that he himself has done in 9 of his last 10 games, including the entire series except one against Toronto. Now, again, the one game there, that was another road game. It was a pretty high-scoring game. I mean, he did okay in that game. But, again, if you look at his last 20, if we go even further out, he has done it in 15 of his last 20 games. If we look at against Detroit, he has done it in all 5 games against Detroit, home and away in the regular season. So it's clear that Cleveland does count on James Harden to really go strong out of the gates, to really set the tone, but especially on the road, especially with a big Detroit crowd that's happy to be back in meaningful playoff games and coming off a big 3-1 comeback against Orlando. He is going to set the tone for Cleveland. They need him to, especially with the way that Donovan Mitchell has been playing relatively inconsistent lately. Enough of that matchup. Let's get on to the Lakers and the Thunder. Now this is AJ Mitchell. He's a key player, a key depth player for the Thunder. They're gonna use their depth. There's no doubt about it. And especially because when they get up early in the score, there's no doubt that they're gonna go to their bench, get some good minutes from their bench. OKC is really going to conserve for the San Antonio game, or San Antonio, Minnesota, wherever they play in the conference final, and then in the finals. There's no doubt that the Oklahoma City Thunder, being the kind of team they are, so deep, they want to make sure that they are playing the most players that they can and getting the most out of the depth that they have built. So AJ Mitchell is going to be a big part of that. However, I am betting that he is going to go under 5.5 field goals. He's simply someone, you can see 9 of his last 10 games here. He's 70%, 14 of his last 20 games. All of that right there, all these things, he has not been able to hit that mark. And that's the thing. You see a guy like AJ Mitchell, he's not a big shooter. He's one of those guys that's going to simply pass the ball quite a bit. He's simply one of those guys who's going to probably play about 10 to 15 minutes. But he is a key depth player. I'm definitely going to be looking at their depth players quite a bit here. So let's keep that in mind. Next pick, Rui Hachimura. Rui Hachimura is someone who has really had to step up for this Lakers team ever since Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves have been out. Now, Luka is not coming back very soon. They still need Rui to step up. They still need to dominate down low. Now, we'll probably see Chet Holmgren onside DeAndre Ayton. That will be a huge matchup in the series. Rui is going to have to step up, and there's no doubt that the Lakers are going to give him the ball. He's going to go over 13.5 points and assists combined. And this is something that, if we look at the trends here, he has done it in 9 of his last 10, especially in the Houston Rockets series when the Lakers needed him to step up most, but even towards the end of the regular season when the injuries were coming in, when Luka got hurt, he was stepping up. He was getting ready for his spot in the playoffs. And he knows that he's going to be needed in this series against the Thunder. You can look out of his last 20, and what you can see in his last 20 is that before Luka really got hurt and that they really got shorthanded, he wasn't really getting as many points and assists combined. It has really come about with the injuries. You can see the Lakers are still in this situation. Head-to-head against the Thunder, again, the biggest thing we're looking at is the recent trend, but even without the recent trend, he still has had games in the past, even earlier this season, where he has been able to eclipse 13.5 points and assists combined. So this is another very favorable metric to look at when making this pick. So again, the Thunder, they're a tough team, but the Lakers, and JJ Redick, they're going to have to do whatever they can to get the most out of guys like Rui Hachimura. He's going to be a huge player in this series, and he's going to give the Lakers the best chance to at least win a couple games against this Thunder team. But let's be real. The Thunder are loaded. They're the defending champions. They're going to try to get through it with the least amount of energy possible. Let's see how this series plays out. Last but not least, we got soccer. If we go right here to the Champions League betting odds, Arsenal versus Atletico. Obviously, Arsenal is the favorite in the betting odds. Not by too much, but they're still a key favorite. And we're going to tell you why Arsenal is a key favorite and why betting on Arsenal to win is a relatively safe bet for us soccer fans here. If we look at the head-to-head record recently, yeah, obviously we had the 1-1 game. It was a controversial one. It was the VAR decisions can be talked about. I mean, I agree with all of them, but, we can obviously have another conversation about that. But one key thing we got to look at in the head-to-head matchup was the league phase match that Arsenal won 4-0 at home against Atletico Madrid. Now, Diego Simeone loves to tweak his lineups throughout the season. He's done a great job of that. There's a reason why he has been to 2 Champions League finals. And this is probably one of the biggest things that's going to play into the favor of Atletico Madrid. But again, it was a 4-0 win. It wasn't like it was 1-0, 2-0. It was 4-0. Arsenal shows that they can do it at home. And that's something that we have seen with their home record in the Premier League this season. They still have one more home match among their last 3. But they have won 14 matches at home. They've drawn 2. They've only lost twice at home. You can see even against Manchester City, that 1-1 draw, earlier on in the season was at home. Some of their losses, Liverpool, Manchester United, yes, they're 2 of the better teams, but even some of the other better teams like Aston Villa, even Newcastle, were teams that they were able to beat in the Premier League. Even Nottingham Forest, they are in the semifinals of the Europa League. If you look at Atletico Madrid's record on the road, it's not that great either. You can see that they've won 5, they've drawn 5, and they lost 7. So you can see that some of those wins aren't necessarily great wins. Maybe Real Betis is a relatively decent one, but you can see they've lost against even Espanyol, let alone Barcelona at home, on the road, Sevilla, even a team like Elche, Rayo. They've had some relatively rough matches on the road in 2026. They've already coming off this 4-0 loss on the road. Atletico Madrid is going to have their hands full. I mean, you can't question who they are in big matches and what they can do against big teams, but it's still a matter of being able to come in and get some big kicks in there. They also have not been very good in second legs. They lost against Tottenham Hotspur. They lost against Barcelona. Now, admittedly, those were both situations where the team was winning. They were winning in the first leg, and then they just had a tough time in the second leg, or they just kind of let off the gas. They know they can't let off the gas here. But the thing is, with Manchester City losing their match they drew their match, and Arsenal getting a big boost in the title race, that will allow them to be more aggressive in this match. We got to think about that too. There was a big 3-3 draw. Man City barely even rescued the draw, but it does get Arsenal up in the Premier League title race. They're going to play aggressive today. Arsenal is going to do enough to win at home. Can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see this match. I believe Antoine Griezmann can be a big factor here. That is it for today. If you saw to the end of my first video, God bless you. Thank you for taking the time to see this. Thank you for taking the time to watch me make it exist before I make it good and before I keep refining. But hey, it's going to happen. We got a Discord community coming. I'm figuring out Winnable. Lots of great things here. I am very excited to continue to come live. I will be at it tomorrow. And tomorrow we will have more of the basketball alongside Paris Saint-Germain versus Bayern Munich. Let's enjoy our slate of sports today. Let's get after it.